I didn't plan on becoming the financial backbone of my family. I never expected to be the one who'd carry the weight of everyone else's responsibilities on my shoulders. But when life hit my parents hard and my sister decided to check out of anything that required effort, I stepped in. No questions. No conditions. Just loyalty. It started 6 years ago. My dad lost his job during a company downsizing, and my mom's health began to decline shortly after. The bills started piling up: electricity, groceries, medications, even small household repairs. I was just beginning to build my career, working long hours and barely keeping my own head above water. But I couldn't watch them drown. So I started covering everything. At first, it felt like the right thing to do. I didn't even think twice. I loved them. They were my parents. And I knew they needed me. But slowly, it stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like a duty they expected. My sister, Michelle, didn't lift a finger. She was always too busy or dealing with her own stress. Never mind that she lived rent-free in one of our dad's old apartments before he had to sell it. Never mind that she went on vacations, posted dinners and new outfits, while I skipped meals to make sure the electricity didn't get shut off at our parents' house. And they never held her accountable. In fact, they treated her like the golden child. "She's just sensitive," my mom would say. "She's got her own way of helping," my dad would add, though I never once saw her do anything. But I stayed quiet. I paid their bills. Month after month. Year after year. Rent, utilities, phone plans, groceries. I paid off medical debt and even helped them get a used car when the old one finally gave up. No one ever said thank you. Not once. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was doing it out of love, not for recognition. But deep down, something started to ache. Not because of the money, I was earning more by then, but because of the one-sidedness. The silence. The complete lack of appreciation. Still, I kept going. Because I didn't want them to suffer. Because even though they never really supported me emotionally, I wanted to be better. Stronger. The kind of person they could depend on, even if they'd never been that for me. Then came the breaking point. My daughter, Emma, was born 3 years into this silent sacrifice. She was my world. And even while raising her, juggling work, and being a husband, I still sent money to my parents. Still paid their bills. Still heard nothing in return. But when Emma was 3, her mother had to travel for work unexpectedly, and I found myself in a tough spot. I had an important meeting, a deal I'd been working on for months, and I needed someone to watch Emma for just one evening. Just a few hours. So I called my parents. The people I had supported, bailed out, and carried for 6 years straight. They hesitated. Then they said, "We're too old to chase a toddler around." I was stunned. But I didn't give up. So I called my sister. Her answer? A laugh. A literal laugh. And then, "Babysitting? We're not your servants." Something broke in me that day. Not because they said no, but because after everything, after all the help, all the sacrifices, they made it sound like I was a burden. That moment changed everything. I wish I could say I brushed it off, that I stayed calm, composed, even gracious. But something inside me cracked that day, and it wasn't just disappointment. It was the weight of 6 years of being used, dismissed, and guilted into silence finally collapsing under its own pressure. After Michelle laughed and hit me with that smug, "We're not your servants" line, there was this long pause on the phone. I didn't hang up. I just sat there holding the phone to my ear, waiting, maybe hoping, she'd realize how out of line she was and walk it back. She didn't. In fact, she followed it up with, "Why don't you just hire a sitter? Don't you make enough money?" That was it. That sentence, that tone, it rewired something in me. Because what she said wasn't just rude, it revealed everything they really thought about me. I wasn't a brother. I wasn't a son. I was a bank account with a name. So I ended the call. No shouting. No explanation. Just ended it. I found someone else to watch Emma that evening. A neighbor, sweet older lady named Mrs. Barnes who always smiled at Emma when we passed by. She didn't even hesitate. She brought over cookies and coloring books. Emma loved her. The meeting went great. We closed the deal. But I couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. Later that night, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my online banking app. I looked through 6 years of transactions. Every rent transfer. Every bill paid. Every emergency loan. It added up to tens of thousands. I stared at those numbers and thought, if I had put that money into a college fund for Emma, she'd be halfway through her future already. That realization punched me in the gut. Because the truth was, I'd been taking care of them, but no one was taking care of me. And definitely not my daughter. That night, I made a decision I should have made years ago. I wasn't going to do it anymore. No more automatic payments. No more late-night calls asking for a quick $200 to hold them over. No more guilt trips. I didn't send out a dramatic announcement or make a scene. Just stopped paying. Stopped checking in. Stopped trying to earn the love and gratitude that should have come freely. At first, there was silence. Maybe they thought it was just a fluke, a missed payment, a busy week. But then my dad called me 3 days later, angry. Did the rent not go through? The landlord said we're late. I calmly said, yeah, I didn't send it. There was a pause. Confusion. Then irritation. What do you mean? I'm done paying everyone else's bills. I have a daughter. I have a life. And you had no problem turning me down over one simple favor. His voice changed quickly. From confusion to defense. We didn't know it was that serious. Exactly, I said. You never do. He mumbled something about me being ungrateful. The irony of that nearly made me laugh, and then he hung up. I expected maybe some fallout. Drama. Screaming voicemails. But what I didn't expect was how quickly everyone turned on me. Michelle started texting me like I'd just abandoned them out of nowhere. She told my parents I was punishing them for nothing. My mom called, crying, saying she didn't understand why I was being so cruel. Cruel. That word echoed in my head for days. I had given everything, my money, my time, my energy, my peace, and the second I stopped, they called me cruel. That's when it finally sank in. They weren't just ungrateful. They were entitled. And they'd never see me as anything other than someone who owed them. But the truth? I didn't owe them anything anymore. My phone buzzed constantly, missed calls, angry voicemails, guilt-laced texts. I ignored them all. I'd spent years dropping everything to answer, and for once, I chose silence. But then came the text that broke me. It was from Michelle. You were never really family anyway. You just threw money at us to feel important. I read it 3 times. My hands were shaking. I felt something between heartbreak and rage. I had always thought, maybe naively, that even if they didn't say it, they knew I was doing it out of love. That somewhere beneath the selfishness, they understood the sacrifices I made. But that message stripped away every illusion I had left. You just threw money at us to feel important. That wasn't frustration. That wasn't heat of the moment lashing out. That was truth, not my truth, but hers. That's how she had seen me all along. Not a son. Not a brother. Just a walking wallet trying to buy affection. Trying to feel needed. I sat on the floor of my living room for hours that night, long after Emma had gone to sleep. I stared at the ceiling in the dark and thought about every birthday I'd paid for, every holiday meal I'd funded, every medication bill I'd covered for my mom, and how none of it had ever been about feeling important. I did it because I cared. Because I thought I was doing the right thing. Because I wanted to hold our family together when it was falling apart. But to them, it was all transactional. All fake. All self-serving. That text wasn't just insulting. It rewrote the past, twisted every good thing I'd done into some pathetic need for validation. And the worst part? A part of me almost believed it. Was I trying to be the hero? Was I trying to make up for something? Maybe I was. Maybe I had convinced myself that being the responsible one would finally earn me the love they always seemed to reserve for Michelle. Maybe I thought that if I gave enough, they'd finally see me. But that text proved they never would. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, I had too much to say. But I realized that no explanation, no paragraph, no carefully written rebuttal would matter. They had already decided who I was. Maybe I was done trying to change their minds. The next morning, I blocked Michelle's number. I didn't tell anyone. I just did it. Quiet and clean. My mom called again a few days later, her voice softer this time. Honey, your sister didn't mean what she said. She's just going through a lot. I could barely hold back the bitterness in my voice. Going through a lot? She said I was never family. Silence. Then my mom, sighing like I was being unreasonable. She didn't mean it like that. And there it was again, the same old pattern. No matter what Michelle did, they excused it, downplayed it, asked me to be the bigger person. I was tired of being the bigger person. The taller you stand, the more people expect you to carry. And I was done caring. I'm not doing this anymore, I said. I'm not the bad guy because I stopped enabling everyone. She didn't reply. I think that's when she realized something had changed in me. That I wasn't bluffing this time. That the version of me who would always cave, always pay, always come back. He was gone. And I didn't miss him. Saying no doesn't always feel empowering at first. Sometimes, it feels terrifying. The first time I said it out loud, to my parents, to Michelle, even to myself, I felt this weird mix of guilt and relief, like I was betraying them, but finally protecting myself. A few weeks after I stopped paying the bills, my dad called again. This time, he tried a different approach, calm, serious, like he was ready to reason with me. Look, he said, I know things got tense, but this isn't like you. You've always been dependable. Dependable. That word. It hit me harder than I expected. Because yes, I'd been dependable, but not in the way they meant. I'd been used. They didn't mean reliable, like a loving son. They meant easy to manipulate. I kept my voice steady. I'm not paying anymore. He sighed. So you're just gonna let us get evicted? You had years to figure things out. I gave you time. I gave you everything. I asked for one thing, and you made me feel like I was begging. There was silence on the line. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't emotional. I was calm, and I think that's what scared them more than anything. Because for once, I wasn't trying to fix it. I'm not your safety net anymore, I said. I need to focus on my daughter. And with that, I hung up. I felt shaky afterward. My hands were cold. My chest tight. But also lighter. Like I'd finally let go of a backpack full of bricks I didn't even know I'd been carrying. That same week, Michelle emailed me. Subject line, let's be civil. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity got the better of me. It was long, filled with half apologies and backhanded guilt trips. She said she regretted her tone, but also accused me of letting money change me. She wrote that family should forgive and forget, and ended it by asking if I could cover one last medical bill for Mom, just this once. I stared at that last sentence for a long time. Just this once. The irony was almost funny. They had said that before. So many times. And every time I'd believed them. Because I wanted to. Because I was desperate for connection. For gratitude. For some version of love. But this time, I didn't even reply. I archived the email and kept scrolling. That weekend, I took Emma to the zoo. It was just the two of us. She was wearing this little pink hat that kept sliding down over her eyes, and I couldn't stop laughing. We shared cotton candy, she fed a giraffe, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. There was no phone buzzing in my pocket, no sinking guilt in my stomach, no mental math calculating how many bills I could afford to cover that month. Just my daughter. The sun. Her laughter. And me, not the family ATM, not the fixer, not the guilty son. Just a dad. I realized something important that day. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. It makes you free. My whole life, I had confused sacrifice with love. I thought giving everything away meant I was good. But what kind of love leaves you empty? What kind of family only values you when you're useful? They taught me that saying yes made me loyal. Life taught me that saying no made me whole. The silence between me and my family stretched longer than it ever had before. At first, I expected it to snap back like a rubber band. Some angry messages, a few guilt-tripping voicemails, then another cycle of pretending everything was okay. But this time, it didn't snap. It just stayed silent. And honestly, I was okay with that. Emma was growing fast. She started preschool, made her first best friend, and learned how to write her name. I was there for every moment, present in a way I never could have been when I was constantly checking my phone for emergency requests from people who couldn't be bothered to show up for me. My focus shifted. I started investing more into my own business. I picked up hobbies I hadn't touched in years. I had time again. I had clarity. I had boundaries. And then, as always, just when I thought the chapter was closed, they came back. It started with a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A literal letter. Handwritten. From my mom. It wasn't long. Barely a page. But every word carried this desperate tone I hadn't seen before. She wrote that they were struggling, that things had gotten really bad, and that they missed me. That Emma was growing up and it was a shame we weren't there to see it. She never apologized. She didn't mention Michelle's message. Didn't acknowledge the years of one-sidedness. Just sadness, regret, and a soft nudge that sounded like a plea. I read it twice. Then 3 times. I felt a tightness in my chest, but it wasn't anger. It was grief. Because this letter wasn't an olive branch. It wasn't healing. It was just a mirror, showing me the family I always wished I had, and the reality I actually got. And the hardest part? I still cared. That's the thing no one tells you about setting boundaries. You don't stop loving the people who hurt you. You just stop letting that love cost you your peace. A week later, I got another message, this time from Michelle. It was shorter than her usual rants. Just a few lines. I've been thinking. You were right. I took you for granted. We all did. No excuses. No guts. It hit harder than any insult she ever threw my way. Because now that I was finally out of their reach, now that I had nothing left to give, now they felt guilty. And it felt empty. I didn't respond right away. In fact, I didn't respond at all for a few weeks. I needed time to figure out what I wanted, not what they expected. And that's when I realized. They were sorry because they lost me, not because of what they did. There's a difference. When people apologize just to get access to you again, that's not healing. That's strategy. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. Eventually, I wrote back to Michelle. Not out of bitterness, but closure. I kept it simple. Thank you for saying that. I've moved on, and I hope you find peace too. I don't hate you. But I won't be part of the same cycle again. She never replied. And I was okay with that. My parents reached out again a few times. I answered, kindly but firmly. I didn't cut them off completely, but I also didn't offer money or drop everything to make life easy for them. I made it clear, I'm a father now. My daughter comes first. And slowly, they began to understand. Or maybe they just gave up trying to change my mind. Either way, their guilt came too late. It's strange how quiet life becomes when you finally stop living for other people. Not lonely, just quiet. The kind of quiet that lets you hear your own thoughts again. The kind of quiet that feels like sitting in a warm room after years of running through storms. And that's where I am now. It's been over a year since I said no, really said no, and meant it. A year since I stopped bleeding myself dry for people who only ever saw my worth in dollars and favors. A year since I stopped answering guilt with generosity. A year since I let go of the need to be the good one. And you know what? I've never felt lighter. My daughter is thriving. She laughs more now. We cook together, dance in the living room, read books until she falls asleep on my chest. Sometimes she asks why she doesn't see Grandma or Aunt Michelle anymore, and I tell her something simple, something true. Because Daddy needed to make things better for us. She accepts that, not with confusion but with trust. Because peace, when you live it daily, becomes something your children can feel. And she feels it. I used to think I needed my family's love, their approval, their praise, to feel whole. But I learned something deeper. What I needed was my own respect. I needed to look in the mirror and feel proud of who I was outside of what I gave away. And that person? He's finally here. People talk a lot about forgiveness. You have to forgive to move on. You can't hold on to anger forever. And they're right, partly. I forgave them. Not because they earned it, but because I deserved it. I didn't want to carry their weight anymore. I didn't want their choices to define my peace. So I forgave them quietly in my own heart, without ever needing them to say the right things. Because some people never will. And that's okay. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about letting yourself walk away. The truth is, I loved my family. I probably still do in some complicated way. But I won't let love bankrupt me anymore. Emotionally, mentally, financially, I paid enough. Now, I invest in what matters. My health. My future. My joy. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it, cutting ties, walking away from the ones who raised me. And I always say the same thing. No. My peace was worth the price. Because when I finally stopped giving everything away, I got myself back.